Hello, welcome. Northstar here with another episode of my Alpha Centauri Let's Play. For those of you new to my channel, welcome. For those of you returning, welcome back. This is part of a series you can check out from the beginning. All my series are organized into playlists. You can check out any of the many games I do, from Avorion to Interstellar Transport Company, done KSB in the distant past. I don't remember if I have those organized in a playlist, but I'll be returning to Kerbal Space Program someday. I really don't want to make it sound like it's too soon because I'm still working through this. Civ 4 will probably be relatively soonish. Next, maybe a Fall from Heaven 2 Let's Play. That's a mod for that game. That may be the one I do instead of the vanilla. I have a Madam Blade Let's Play going, a Rebel Inc. Let's Play, pop-up dungeons videos, lots of still in the buffer, and I'll probably be adding more. Age of Wonders 3 multiplayer Let's Play that's got lots of videos in the buffer. There's something else that has a buffer that's nearly out. I'd have to check. I space videos out for a number of reasons, including sometimes I return something and come up with new tags to add, changes to the title or description before something publishes. Sometimes I decide that I'm going to split some different playlists if it's getting too long. But most of all, if I post everything at once, it'd be very irregular. There'd be weeks sometimes where nothing new happens. I'd lose audience interest, and then there'd be a whole bunch of videos, way too much to watch at once. It would overwhelm people. So this gets me more views, more subscribers. I'm disabled with long COVID, so I need this channel to grow to the point where I can monetize and make enough money to eventually survive, although at first just to even supplement my savings and what limited help I get from the government, which will probably disappear with the kind of techno-fascism that Trump is pushing, and stuff like cuts to Medicaid, which supposedly are supposed to exempt disabled people, but they really won't. I guarantee the challenge of proving you're disabled will get much harder, and since long COVID is an invisible disability, it's easy to gaslight people and say, oh, you don't really feel tired all the time, you're just making that up, or some bullshit like that. There's not a lot of visible things, although there are some, like rashes that appear out of nowhere. Measurable things like blood pressure being really screwed up, heart rate being really screwed up. These things are not visible, but they're measurable. Stuff with bowel movements being irregular, and you can see stuff like diarrhea that's obviously visible. I'm not going to bore irritating folks with talking about things, some of which are kind of embarrassing and gross anyhow. But I will say, it's frustrating to live in a system. It doesn't care about my existence like this. This is where capitalism inevitably leads. As things get rougher, as the rate of profit declines, and it does decline. Marxist theory predicts that, although I've looked at some of the harder Marxist theory on this, and it's mistaken. It's wrong in that it falsely, the calculations of the decline of the rate of profit always assume that the consumption of luxury goods by business owners, that was like the billionaire class and multimillionaires, will not increase over time. It does increase over time as they become wealthier and wealthier. Not enough to prevent the rate of profit from declining, but enough that it happens much slower than most Marxists predicted. So their predictions are always accurate that it'll happen, but wrong about how quickly. Which is part of why capitalism, although it's becoming more unstable, is still quite stable. And the response to this is to cut into welfare systems, to cut taxes on the rich, so that more of that declining rate of profit is kept by the rich, by the high bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie. High bourgeoisie are like the billionaire class. Petty bourgeoisie are like small business owners who actually mostly still work for most of their income, but a portion of it is supplemented by employing people in their small businesses. So it's like people in businesses with less than 100 workers kind of thing. Or maybe these days, as the rate of profit goes down, less than 150 or something, that number keeps going up because you need to have more and more workers in order for the majority of your income to come from workers as the rate of profit declines. Because you don't make a lot of profit off machines. Marxists will also also say automation doesn't increase profit at all. It all comes from labor. That's not true. But the machines increase profits relatively little, since anyone can buy machines, and so the competition to purchase the machines, and always the newest ones, or also the companies that make machines will do monopolistic pricing, lots of stuff. What it ends up happening is you make a lot less profit off machines relative to capital invested than off human labor, and so that's just one of the things that contributes to the declining rate of profit. But instead, it'll be blamed on immigrants and the poor and the disabled, because that is the nature of capitalism, to find scapegoats for its own failures. Anyhow, so I'm playing as the peacekeepers here, and they can go planned economy and democracy, which is basically the game kind of whitewashes and or erases socialism to a certain degree. If you look at the description of planned economy, it has some bullshit about semi-market economy. That's a lot of crap. It's socialism. It's economy that's either centrally planned or like a socialist Derridge's May system, which is partially centrally controlled. And stuff like workers' cooperatives, worker control means of production can exist entirely through market mechanisms still. If you have workers' cooperatives, and that's the only legal way to own businesses, for instance, and the government makes loans available to set up workers' cooperatives. So they're, not non-interventionist. The government has to be involved to make sure workers' cooperatives are the primary, but still using market mechanisms to distribute labor and such within that system. Market socialism is a thing, and maybe this is devs thinking that purely planned economies had failed because the Soviet Union collapsed. The Soviet Union did not collapse due to its inability to survive economically. The Soviet Union collapsed due to its politics, its political instability, if you will. The people within the Soviet Union lost their faith in the system, and due to them no longer defending the system, I'm applying a little bit of the analysis of what is Alan Green or whatever the frick. The guy who does Crash Course World History and Crash Course, the Crash Course history teacher. He's something of a right winger, but he has a comment which he actually gets from I think a teacher he once had about how systems collapse when the majority of people stop believing in them. And that's basically true. It's a correct insight. Soviet Union collapsed because the majority of its population stopped believing in it, not because it couldn't work, because people didn't believe in it, that it was worth keeping around, or that it would work anymore, which is not the same as can't. People can falsely believe a system is doomed that is in fact not doomed. Soviet Union actually had a higher long-term GDP growth rate than almost every country in the world. Almost, because it was actually never number one, it was number two in terms of when you look at, and this is not annual growth rate. Annual growth rates are deceptive. The simplest possible example I could give is if you have an economy that doubled in size one year, plus 100% GDP growth, and then it lost all of that growth the next year and went right back to the original size, minus 50% GDP growth. The annual average growth rate would be plus 25%. The economy at the 2-year long-term growth rates are not 2 years, they're usually 5 or 10-year periods. You look at 2-year growth rate, 0%. So you look at longer time periods, you look at how much did the Soviet Union grow from the beginning of a given period to 5 years later, and you compare, and you keep doing that at different 5-year windows and compare that to any other country in the world. And except for a few very, 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 very poor third world countries that like saw a tiny amount of growth because their economy is so small, that was actually higher. When you exclude some of the most, a few outliers, you end up with them being number two. Uh, which the number one spot was variously held by France or Japan. France, I know it might seem weird. It's because their economy crashed and stopped growing after about 1972. But before then, it was actually growing really, really well. That's partly due to something Richard Nixon did that should never have been allowed. And that's tearing up the Bretton Woods global banking system, which he did completely unilaterally. And the French economy heavily relied on that system. Changes in the way global trade were handled due to the end of that system that Nixon, again, illegally, international law should have said he had no right to do this. It was a system that had been agreed upon by all the major powers at the end of World War II. Well, the Allied side. And it was kind of something that all humans on Earth were affected by. So for one country to fuck with that just because it was powerful enough to should never have been allowed. It was wrong, morally wrong, and because there was no replacement system created. Instead, it wasn't like there was a new conference, a new system hammered out. Instead, Nixon just started doing whatever he wanted and using the U.S. dominance that had been given to the U.S. to be in charge of the Bretton Woods system, but with certain rules on what it wasn't allowed to do. It allowed Nixon to completely fuck with the world economy and manipulate it however he wanted, and he did. And the result of these manipulations was that it horrendously harmed the French and Soviet economies. Although it harmed almost every country in the world besides the United States. Almost every country in the world, and even harmed the U.S. growth rate economically. The benefit to the U.S., you would say, why would Nixon do that, is that it allowed the U.S. to massively increase its military spending, which military spending does not in itself lead to economic growth. It can lead if it's accompanied by deficit spending. So let's look at two examples. If you mass increase taxes and put it into the military, it will not increase your economic growth at all. If you do deficit spending, it will increase your economic growth. That is, you don't raise taxes to pay for the military, instead borrow money, but that will harm your future economic growth. Sometimes 20 years later, it's a delayed effect, but it'll come back to you in the end. And the U.S. is now paying the price for military spending done in the 90s and 80s, because there's a huge delay on it, but it eventually comes back to you. It's just a delay. Back to you as in it comes back to bite you. Right, this needs to repair. So the benefit anyway was, sorry if I wasn't clear there. The benefit was allowing massive military spending by the United States. Specifically, the way Nixon did it was massive deficit spending on the Vietnam War. It may have actually decreased the change in the system, how much that would stimulate the economy, but it allowed it to not hurt the economy, because at the levels Nixon was doing it, it should have led to massive inflation. It did lead to massive inflation, but it would have actually been even worse inflation without tearing up Bretton Woods. The amount of money Nixon spent on the Vietnam War was absolutely insane, and the U.S. still lost the war. So, it's funny. Yes, to this day, you get denialists who actually try and claim the U.S. didn't lose the Vietnam War. It's like, Vietnam is ruled by the Communist Party now. The U.S. also lost the Afghan War, the Second Iraq War, and the Korean War was a draw, which it's not a victory. U.S. hasn't won a major war since World War II. It's mostly just bullied really small countries and invaded them and gotten away with that. Where are the rest of my rovers? Oh, they're way over there. Hunting for mine worms. Also making sure the one place where the rovers can't fall back. There's less chance of them getting attacked by mine worms. Where there's both collateral damage and they can't disengage. And I have to try and enter the fungus to get mine worms, so there's just a risk of rovers getting stuck in the tiles. Nothing to be done about it. Hmm. If I do this enough, sooner or later I'm going to find some more mine worms. But yeah, politics is complicated, especially when you get into the truth of things and the ways you've been lied to, because then you not only have to explain events that already, sorry, the way people have been lied to. Then you have to now explain events that are complicated to begin with, but the way that these already complicated events have been intentionally misrepresented to benefit this or that group. And that's a lot to talk about. I need to do that because form returns are more valuable in most things. Go here. And load that slow probe team into the transport. So get where it's going a little faster. Where are there? Oh, this still has a move. Is there anything that hasn't moved around here? Not really. Rovers everywhere that have just moved. Right, I should move the rover first here because wouldn't want it to get left exposed. But if it fails, I can just leave the scout patrol on the tile. Making its way back out of the fungus and ultimately to this monolith, I guess. That's a quicker way to repair than in the base. Uh, guess I'll put that rover there. It's not that damaged, or heal up in, I guess, a couple turns. And go for the monolith there. Should have some rovers a little further back in case they desperately need to rush some north. For not desperately, but in case they need to get a few north for some mine worms. Now they've got an alliance with the Believers. Hold on a sec. Sorry, I could smell there's a little bit of dust that's getting caught up in the fan and taking this laptop. It's a problem. Anyways, that probably discourages the Spartans from attacking me, and it does mean I can potentially it's okay if I have less units on the front end, maybe suffer slightly higher losses of rovers, because the Believers might be able to distract the Spartans. I guess that won't be until they have some naval units, which I did go back and check the video. I'd given Centauri ecology and doctrine flexibility to the Believers, as well as a net of 100 energy credits for an alliance and their world map. Although the world map was before I realized they would be willing to sign alliance, so with that it wasn't actually useful. So, I mean, I wanted to strengthen the Believers some so they don't get crushed by someone, and flexibility will allow them to produce naval units, which will allow them to show up and mess with the Spartans someday once they've had some time to build a navy. If they haven't even prototyped probably the first foil, which I think, yeah, you have to prototype chassis and weapons, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong. Maybe it's just weapons and armor. Chassis, weapons, and armor. I think any one of those. But they may have to prototype foils. They definitely have to build them, regardless. And they might not prioritize as their very next units, so it might be a bit. But eventually they'll have transports and combat ships, and we'll be able to bombard Spartan coastlines, land, ground units, provide a little help. Just knowing that it would eventually happen means I can afford a little more of a sloggy war with Sparta. Yeah, and having rovers, fewer rovers, the front causes slightly worse losses and leads to more of a slog or lost opportunity to kill Spartan units early. Whereas having the rovers a little further back, a couple in this area, might allow me to deal with mine worms that come out a little better. Like I don't have anything protecting civil rights agency right now. I do have a couple recon rovers here, which
Terraform complete.
Probably should have. Oh well. Space would have a golden age with a another energy craft from that with a rover stationed in it, so I should probably try and rotate one back. I do have scout patrol protecting those formers. And have this rover here, which can hit anything that hits the scout patrol. That was so if my one came there, this green rover could back up one if necessary. Oh well. Send this here. Let's wait to the monolith eventually to become a disciplined rover. Alrighty then. His probe team moves faster, not being in the transport. Could send it here. Apparently probe teams don't suffer collateral damage, and I'd presume if I got a probe team there. I don't know. Try different routes. I don't know. Just don't know. Going through this way, there is a bit of more than a bit of zeofungus to go through. Of course, these rovers are probably actually best served on the river anyhow. Now let's just do that. I want to go in the stack because if it's with one unit, I think it stops it from disengaging. But if the rover's destroyed, the probe team is too. So I wouldn't want to say put it here. I don't know that for sure. I know it's normal military units combat, but I don't know with mine worms. Avoiding double stacking allows this rover to potentially disengage, and they're both on the river now. Should be in more than enough to get the probe team safely through the river next turn, next year. Boom. Server go here next year. Somewhere we can withdraw if it's tapped. Just barely, I think. When it get down to 10% health remaining, it would withdraw. Let's see, where did I have a rover withdraw before? Here, yeah, and it lost 50% health before withdrawing. So any rover that has at least 60% of its health remaining should be able to withdraw against slower units. Anyhow. Defend the hardened, damaged rover with a disciplined rover. I guess let's make its way back here. Let me send the probe team here. I have lots of rovers on call for mine worms. Especially because I still like to try and get a mine worm spawn when I'm protecting the probe team. But not more than one. Alright, then. Exploration. I mean, the weavers don't know what's there. These nutrient resources. See, I could almost imagine it's like a bunch of fish or something. It's been a bit since I saved. Doing this so I can see more. I also want this to be further from that fungus. Could have been here, here, or here. This is probably the safest tile. Least likely to have Isle the Deep accidentally wander in it. Tend to stick near fungus, I think. Or maybe it's sea orcs and expansion. Let that heal up to 20% health. Guess the other two should just wait for next turn. Since the damaged units will load next turn, the undamaged needs to protect them. Cool. Farms near Ocean Institute. Turns till finishes, fills its nutrient queue, and then grows in the next turn. Working those rolling moist tiles. I think the reason I did solar panel rather condenser was because I need to move on, get another farm there. Minerals. And condenser would grow the pop faster, but nothing for the population actually work that's profitable. Like even in 2 nutrient thing, just population feed themselves, but they don't produce any surplus that pays for throwing upkeep or anything. Not allocating site points yet, though, I guess, so there's no real upkeep yet. This base. Out of curiosity, not gonna stick with that. Okay, so next energy goes to inefficiency. So I want to see. I mean, there's no point for another solar panel. Well, except no, wait, if I raise the elevation, I can make it 2 energy, so actually it would probably produce one lab point, I think. Still, labs aren't terribly cost effective, so probably just go remove the last fungus on this coastline here. Or maybe I get like a rolling moist towel that is out of the sea here or here. One of those could be useful. 37 minutes. Need to move a little quicker, but with my long COVID, oh yeah, for those, I think I explained before, that slows my thought process down. I'm disabled long COVID, so I can't think quick enough. Sometimes it messes me. It's of course why I'm too sick to work. One of the main reasons, one of the many health effects of long COVID that gets in the way of working is that I think so. It's not the only health issue that from this disease that's, or even the only health issue I had. I had some minor health issues in before long COVID. Nothing that stopped me from working on their own, but they do synergize with that. Anyways, some assholes are gonna be like, "Oh, you just." I'm actually one of those people who always walk it off and went around downplaying the fact health issues out of me, so it's not like I'm exaggerating. That's always been the way I respond to stuff. Maybe even when I should have gotten stuff looked into more. Rolling rainy farm condenser. And this is now rolling rainy. And being worked by defense command, right? Yep. Yippity yippers. Space can reach size 5 would be 3 talents. And 2 drones. Space can reach size 6 without issue. It wouldn't be till size 7. I would need a police unit or rec commons or something. Or just to work a doctor. Could, for instance, When it reaches 7, 7th pop becomes doctor. Size 8th pop becomes a doctor. And then size 9, I have a pop who work a tile or be something like a detonation. Of course, it's not cost effective to grow the space beyond size 6. Or 7, did I say? 3, 6, yeah. So it grows, I assigned the condenser. The surplus goes to 2, size 4. One at size 5. Neutral size 6. Give me a moment. Alright, yeah. I probably should just prioritize more mineral production. At this base and another ship after the probe team, because not only is it helpful against Spartans, it's helpful with getting pods. There's tons more out at sea. Some will give energy, some techs. Some, I don't think you can get alien artifacts without a transport, but energy, techs, and some complete production at the nearest base that's working on a facility. So maybe nothing right now. Others could have comm links. There are 2 factions I don't have contact with. Or 3, actually. The Hive, the Gaians, and no, those 2, because I'm one of them, obviously. So the Hive and the Gaians. We're actually both doing very well. So 7 to grow. Let's go 2 nutrients. 3 to go. 3. Perfect. That's from condensed from the farm there. Heck with it. Nutrients are great and all. So see ya. But minerals are better. So counting condensers, they're waiting to get overgrown. This one is actually to support neighboring farms and such, I'm pretty sure. Not for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, eventually. It's the number of condensers that exist just to get overgrown to forced condensers. They're not all just purely that. This one here also benefits neighboring farm. I think this one turned that rainy. Was it rainy before? I think it was moist. This one definitely made this rainy. So, but yeah, and this made this rainy. So yeah, they all benefited neighboring tiles as well as eventually being overgrown. Sometimes helping get exactly the nutrients needed. Make it up to grow quicker. Not horrendous return on investment. Investigate, repair. If the worms attack the server again, it'll disengage again, but it might do more damage before it disengages. So, cool. Rolling moist farm needs another condenser, so it's rolling rainy. Otherwise, it's inferior to forest in every way. There was the transport. I'm like, there's a transport around here. I'm sure of it. Two-thirds chances saves a tile. I mean, a turn. Condenser here, because I'll probably do a base there. Or can work all these until I eventually build a base on the coast proper. Eventually. I'll do it. Eventually. Huh. This tile will be made rainy by a condenser. It's not really relevant. So I wanted to do a farm solar collector someday after I've lifted nutrient caps for 3 nutrients, 2 energy. Very marginal tile, but or just crawl it with the supply car before I did a condenser. No, that wouldn't make any sense. Condenser's way cheaper than supply cars. If you give a reasonable value to the form returns, it's not vastly inflated. Cool. Working on that condenser. Also be useful for this energy bonus. Someday if I put a base here, that can be worked before I get a borehole on it. Which I'll want to do for sure. Should count as a slope. For it to be a slope, I would have to raise the tile actually, and then if it was 1,000 meters with a lower elevation next to it, it counts as a slope. I think might have to have a higher elevation above it. Not positive. I need to double check the slope rules. It says it can't be boreholed because of slope, then I would just proceed to raise the terrain, I guess, until it stops saying it. Or if the peak of a tile doesn't work, raise, then like raise it twice or once to create a little plateau. Variety things I can do. Oh, savor. Eventually. That to guard. I suppose I best double stack in case something comes out here. Oh, there's nothing guarding this former. Bloody A. Okay, we'll double stack. And load. I don't know if that protects against cloud damage, the other thing dies. If not, then whatever. I'm gonna have the transport go here so I can get a scout patrol on this former next. There that can potentially skirmish this thing if it doesn't decide to go for the right next to it. Guess I'll keep this way. the alien artifact there. So I do a little mind worm hunting there. If it was a good idea. Transport hangs out on center with the former. Assuming it will be the one that guards the tile, based on my prior experience with the transport versus a former. So worst case. Of course, I don't want that to be attacked, and that would be a backup to the scout probably and other units around. How am I doing in time? Jeez, almost an hour. I always take longer with these than I think I will. Boom. Alright, enough of that. There's a alien artifact there. I should try and get a recon rover in that direction. I don't need to really care that much about clearing worms in these tiles. They're not improved yet. So I'll leave the river. I mean, the sculpture might get a defense bonus. Maybe.